You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast from Apathetic Enthusiasm.
Coming to you live from Clip World, where we show you clips of various things like your life and reruns, and clips from movies and shows you haven't seen, but they tell you kind of what the plot is without spoiling it directly. But you know what? We'll get into that first from a clip after Interdimensional IRSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
So many clips.
It's a total clips of the heart.
Yeah, the key is grouping them with thematic connections.
That's right. Group them in the heart. It's that D-Light song.
Group is in the heart. Hey, everybody, I'm Travis.
Hey, everybody, I'm Brandon. And yes, we are referencing Bootsy Collins, who played bass on the classic D-Light song, Grooves in the Heart. We have a great show for you today.
Do we? Oh. Do we know that for sure, Brandon?
Or at least a show. We have a show for you. And before we get started into any of that, we have to do some social media housekeeping business. It's standard here on the show. We want to shout out old folks on X, which soon, by what I'm seeing from the platform, X will be what it is as far as a social
It'll be
media.
an X social media platform that we used to talk about.
Oh, somebody, Zach. Social, anyways, at Rick and Morty Pod, we're over there. Facebook.com/Rick and Morty Podcast. You can go head over there. Instagram, Rick and Morty Podcast, or Rick and Morty Pod. We have them both. Woo, that real estate, that sweet Rick and Morty Pod real estate. Email Rick and Morty Podcast at gmail.com. We do have some emails today, so I'm excited to talk about that. And for the first time ever, we have Rick and Morty Pod bsky.social. That's right, we're over on Blue Sky, and let me tell you what, our Blue Sky is blowing up. It is blowing
fire.
Up. Thanks to all of you for following. We now have a total of 7 followers on Blue Sky. Thanks to Thomas, Gina, Soul Draws Shenanigans, Chris Lloyd, and then David
Lloyd.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd follows us.
Wow. It's incredible.
1.21.
We're on the subreddits. He's a moderator. I don't do such things. But we're on the official Rick and Morty subreddit, rickandmorty.reddit.com. You can also follow our subreddit, rickandmortypodcast.reddit.com. Go to our website, rickandmortypod.com. If you want to get video versions of the podcast, you can certainly do that over on YouTube/Apathetic Enthusiasm. Or support our podcasts, all of them, especially this one, at patreon.com/apathetic enthusiasm. Big thanks to all the patrons who stick around for that post show, that bonus content that we be slinging, because that's what we do. Thanks everybody. Shout us out. Let us know. Leave a comment on YouTube if you're there. Here's what I'll say about YouTube.
Okay.
We are one subscriber away from a milestone. So I think it's like an extra 100 or whatever. Like it clicks over to 100 something, 200 something subs or whatever. So if you go to YouTube, subscribe over there, help us reach another hundo. Thanks for being here. Brandon, how the heck are you? How you feeling? You loose?
Yeah, I'm feeling loosey goosey. I feel pretty good about things today, Travis. Thank you for asking.
Not at all, and in any way distracted by Super Bowl rematch that may or may not be playing as we record this episode.
I'm not distracted not distracted by it at all. I don't care about the Chiefs. I don't care about the Eagles. I care less about the Chiefs. So I'm really excited about not caring.
Good.
Caring about our show.
Then let's carry that apathy into our first segment, a segment that we like to call Semi-Pertinent News.
Semi-Pertinent News.
Second verse. All right. So, first up is a news story brought to us by The Hollywood Reporter. We seem to be going back to this fairly often, but they're getting the good interviews, they're getting the good connections, and this is a story. Rick and Morty, new voice actors speak out, a literal dream come true. This is from James Hibbard, November 19th. This came out, and it's as far as I'm aware, the first interview with the voice actors, the new voice actors of Rick and Morty, Ian Cardone, Harry Belden. We have a link to it in our show notes, but yeah, it's a really. I read through this interview today. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great to hear a little bit more about the process that they went through to get the gig as the voice actors, the audition process, a little bit about the technical aspects of how they do the voices and things that they work on, and sort of just their method for actually performing the voices, and then just like how reaction has been and how they've handled going from being really big fans of the show to suddenly being the voice actors of the two main characters. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fantastic interview.
I agree. I thought it was really, really good, and you can sense how honored and how humbled they are to be a part of this show, right?
Yeah.
I think in the interview it asked it. One of them talks about how basically everyone's in voice acting has like done their impression of a Rick and Morty type of voice. It was interesting reading about one of them saying they thought they did a better Rick actually, right? But then they got a Morty instead.
Yeah, they actually both auditioned for both characters.
Yeah,
so both of them have done Rick and Morty attempts, and then ultimately one voice won out over the other. But yeah, if you want to check it out, again, Rick and Morty, new voice actors speak out. Yeah, it's a great interview, not very long. Check it out over at thehollywoodreporter.com. And yeah, good stuff. Love these guys. They're great. 100 years, Rick and Morty.
they are great. They are great. And that maybe that's something we talk about at the end of the season. Again, we talk about the overall season, and we bring their voices up as part of that. But we're not going to talk about that anymore because we have something else to talk about. We have you brought this up. I haven't watched this video, but it's a Death Battle Rooster from Rooster Teeth. Rick Sanchez versus the Doctor.
Yeah, this was brought up to me by a coworker today, and he's like, "Oh, did you see the new Death Battle? It's Rick Sanchez versus the Doctor." I was like, "I don't know what that is. Are you talking about the famous segment Blood Dome Battle League?" And he's like, "I'm sorry. Are you having a stroke?" And then he explained to me what this was. It is from the very famous YouTube channel Rooster Teeth. They have a channel called Death Battle, and this is where they pit famous characters from different properties against each other, very much like a Blood Dome Battle League. And they break down all the characteristics of the characters, things like that, and then determine, at least in this case with an animated short, who would win in a death battle between two characters. So this came out 4 hours before I watched it, which can only mean that the coworker that brought it up to me was probably watching it at work. I'm not gonna say anything else on that matter, but I did find it interesting. Anyway, yeah. So this is the Doctor from Doctor Who.
And I'm not calling him out, and he's not listening to the show.
You should be doing your work, not watching the YouTubes. It's fine. It's a holiday week. I don't care what you're doing. I'm not their boss. Yeah, so link in the show notes. But yeah, Rick Sanchez versus the Doctor. I'm not going to spoil the outcome. I will let you see what they determine is the outcome of this matchup. But interesting concept for a video. And you can tell that they put a lot of work into it as well. So yeah, if you're interested, if you've ever had that spirited debate with someone, who would win, Rick Sanchez or Doctor Who, the folks over at Death Battle, they've got the answer for you.
All the time. I go to bed with it on my mind. I've
never not thought about it.
No, my whole career is based off of this one concept.
Yeah, it's basically your Roman Empire.
Yeah, look, I don't think about the Roman Empire as much as other people do. That's a really I want to talk
Yeah,
about this.
you
after the show.
you
So much.
can't because you're constantly thinking about this.
That is for our post show, but let's go ahead and talk about the last piece of semi-pertinent news. It's a little segment in which we call the Dan Harmon Social Media Minute.
Dan, he's not tweeting.
that's good.
All right, Dan Harmon Social Media Minute. I'll tell you what. Usually we go to Instagram. Instagram is the spot where you can get the freshest and hottest pictures from Dan Harmon, but he really hasn't posted there in a few weeks. But the good news is there's a little bitty offshoot of a social media, and I'm not talking about Blue Sky because I don't even know how to get there. I'm of course talking about Threads.
He doesn't have to lock it. Information.
And Dan Harmon actually posted a thread 3 days ago, a bit of a conversation between two creatures, which I will now read for you. Creature 1, was this always a hydrogen station? Creature 2, there was once a civilization here. Billions of creatures, gone now. How is that possible? Did they not have social media? They achieved it, but in the end, their takes were never hot enough. Creature 1, I will signal boost them. A waste of a platform, child. And scene. Currently with 1,027 likes and 17 replies. That is your Dan Harmon Social Media Minute.
That was perfect. Thank you, Travis, for the Dan Harmon Social Media Minute. I didn't know that would be the thing we were gonna read today. I think it would have been more effective had we shifted.
Oh yeah, take 2. Nah, I'm just kidding. We're done. If you see a semi-pertinent news story out there on the internet that you think we should cover, send it to us on our socials. Send us an email. Happy to cover that in a future episode. Thank you so much for listening to all of that. When we come back, we will get into a very exciting and entertaining episode right after a word from these sponsors. Was there a sponsor? Who knows? I mean, you know. Welcome back, everybody.
You were listening. You know if there's a sponsor or not.
You know.
Hey, shoot us a message over at Blue Sky with which sponsor you got for $5 off of your next croissant.
There's somebody out there on some podcatcher that's like, I've never heard a sponsor on this show. I think they're making it up.
Yeah,
anyway,
iHeartRadio sent us an email earlier that I meant to respond to. But
yeah, they got some new platform going on or something. Anyway, that's post-show material.
That's post-show.
It's time now for everyone's favorite segment. It's time for the main thing.
Main thing. Main thing.
It's a little muppety, and that's why I love it.
That's not a muppet. Oh, stupid noise.
All right, coming at you with the 6th episode of Season 7, Rickfending Your Mort. Episode air date, 19th November 2023. Written by Cody Ziegler. Directed by Jacob Hare, close personal friend of the podcast.
Close personal friend. Thanks for listening, Jacob. Every
thanks for putting us on your playlist.
Yeah, thank you.
To be listened to.
Guest stars. By the way, Jacob Hare. This is the 3rd episode so far of this season. He's in it. He's in it to win it. He's up in this. Guest stars: Ryan Hansen, Maria Bamford, Eric Bauza, Troy Baker, Phil Hendry, Albert Lundy, and Echo Kellum. A smorgasbord of guest stars. Lots of voices to be had in this episode. Our Bronopsis. Travis, take it away.
Gotta keep those receipts, dog.
Our synopsis, though, the key is grouping them with thematic connections. ... Bruh.
Yeah, I had to add a bruh, otherwise it's just a quote from the episode.
Yeah. We shipped it up with the bruh at the end. Yeah. So Rickfending Your Mort. For those who don't know, it is a reference to a 1991 movie, Defending Your Life, which was written and directed by the great Albert Brooks. If you go to Max right now, there's actually I don't know if it's a good documentary because I haven't watched it yet, but I want to, called Defending Your Life, and it's an Albert Brooks documentary.
Oh, okay.
Where he talks about his life and some behind the scenes stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, the whole concept of the movie is he is somebody who dies and he goes to heaven, or he goes to the afterlife, and he has to defend his life in a court-like setting, which is really apropos for this episode.
Rather on the nose when you think about it. Yeah. Yeah, and so interesting episode. I think coming off of such a big and very canon-esque episode like we got last week, the defeat of Rick Prime left a lot of fans wondering what's going to happen next. Where can the show gracefully transition? Is it gonna feel like they just reset and nothing's wrong? And of course, what better time to bring in an interdimensional cable / Morty's Mind Blowers type episode then let's do a clip show. And I thought the timing was great, and I think it was a great way to transition out of last week's episode.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Right, like us, Morty cashes in. He decides to cash in his adventure cards for a classic Rick and Morty adventure, and I think that's one of the things we want to talk about with this a conversation about this, right? Because there's nothing super deep about this episode, right? There's not really deep core thematic connections that we're really trying to glean from this, but it how can we talk about this episode without just going through all of our favorite bits, right? And just like listing them down. So one of the things that Travis and I talked about was the clip show comparison between interdimensional cable and the Morty's Mind Blowers type of clip show, right? So I want to go ahead and just pose that question, pose that thought to you, Travis, and get what you feel about that, how you feel about that.
Yeah, it was interesting because this actually came up in a conversation at work when we were just talking about Rick and Morty in general, and somebody mentioned interdimensional cable episodes, and then somebody mentioned that they actually liked Morty's Mind Blowers more than interdimensional cable. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, why is that? And he's like, he didn't really have a good answer, but it got my brain thinking about it, and about sort of the difference between those early loose improvisational feel, clip shows with interdimensional cable 1 and 2, and then how Morty's Mind Blowers, and I would argue this episode, sort of fall into separate categories. They're all clip shows. They all kind of go off and don't follow a conventional plot. But the interdimensional cable episodes, I think what stand out to me is how the topics or the channels, the episodes were about anything. Whereas the Morty's Mind Blowers, those clips, those flashbacks, tended to all centrally focus on the Smith family, Rick, Morty, characters that are more central to the show itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a preference of those? Do you feel like one is stronger than the other? Do you worry that we're only going to see Mind Blower type now and not kind of get back to that interdimensional cable? Lots of questions.
Lots of questions. Let's see if I can answer them in order. Spoiler alert, I cannot. I forgot what most of them were. What I would say about my preference, I think maybe if we'd started this podcast later on, after
Sure.
after season 3, season 4, maybe it wouldn't be called interdimensional RSS. Maybe it would have been called something else. But one of the things that really got me into Rick and Morty, and we talked about this on previous episodes of the show,
Numerous times.
is the fact that that's what really got me into Rick and Morty in the first place. Just those clips, those like zany, all over the place, Gazorp field. We don't, you don't get those out of like the mind blowers stuff necessarily, right? So that kind of humor got me into it. I do like the mind blowers bits. I do like this one. I do like the Never Rick and Morty kind of story train stuff where it's kind of all over the place too. But I think there's a difference in improv happening on the production side, and I think Brian Newton talked to us about it back in the day, right? Storyboard driven versus how the episodes are actually put together.
Yeah.
Where one is like ad-libbing voice, recording it, and then animating to that, and that's what Interdimensional Cable 1 and 2 are. Whereas Morty's Mind Blowers, Story Train, this one, they feel more like ad-libbed writing prompts. And they said, okay, we have a prompt now. Go ahead, let's animate something to the prompt. And because that is much more of a like, okay, cool, we have a prompt, and we can write a story around it. We can write a little clip around it. We can do the voice acting stuff after the fact. That is probably a much easier thing to complete than, hey, we have a random recording of Harry Belden doing something crazy. Let's now animate to that real quick, right?
Yeah.
And that's a season 1, season 2 kind of production hell type of thing. Probably that contributed there.
Yeah, and I think that's been something that has been spoken to a lot about the history of the show, is how challenging those early seasons were to produce, which drove a lot of the delays and large gaps between seasons and things like that. The fact that they've been able to bring in new showrunners, new crew that can focus in on certain aspects of the show and still honor that legacy of the show of having clip shows and having shows just kind of go off at random without having to just, I don't know, get somebody drunk in the sound booth, just be like, all right, what do you got? I'm Miles Johnson. You know, like, I can't see anything. I can't feel anything. I will say those early Interdimensional Cable episodes will always be close to like my favorites, just because I feel like it's really rare to hear genuine improv in animation like those episodes, where like there are moments where you can tell they're like breaking character. They're just leaving audio in where the voiceover artists were like, I don't know, like wouldn't the car always win, right? Like, you know, or like that sort of stuff. And the fact that they do that, it makes those things really special, and they don't have to have Rick and Morty in a scene for it to be memorable or be something that fans really enjoy. And I think for the Mind Blowers and in this episode, they're always Rick centered or Morty centered until towards the end, when it starts becoming like observer focused and stuff like that. But again, like you mentioned, that's a bunch of ideas that get thrown in a shoebox or in a Pop-Tart box, right? And then they're just like, Morty steals $20 from Rick when he's passed out on the couch. Yeah, let's make it. Let's do it.
Well, yeah, and like Wenwolf, right? Like
sure.
some of those like mini clips you see on the TV throughout the seasons, where you're like, this is like interdimensional cable type stuff, but it's just strewn about. Yeah, you know, the thing about I like about these episodes, whether it's Mind Blowers, Story Train, Rickfending or Mort, is those that just the throwing out of ideas and being like, we don't have to do an entire episode based off of it, but let's do a clip. Let's do something funny.
Yes.
And that's it, right? The squirrel stuff from Morty's Mind Blowers.
Yeah.
You know, another thing. I feel like though these types of episodes kind of capture a spirit of those earlier seasons
I
that
agree.
that we don't always get with new episodes, right? Especially, and I'm gonna say this. I didn't watch Rick and Morty for the lore. I was watching it because they were standalone stories, and it was funny. And then they dragged me in. They dragged me in.
I think it's clear to anyone that listened to this podcast for like the first 4 seasons. We were like, no, it's not all tied together. Stop trying to make it all canonical. They can just be standalone series, like standalone episodes with fun adventures. Every line doesn't have to mean something. It can just be a throwaway joke. We beat that drum incessantly for years, and now we're like, all right, guess we should do an entire podcast episode dedicated to the history of Rick Prime. Like, let's
here we go.
Let's make that episode.
Begrudgingly
killed halfway through the season. Thanks, Dan and Scott.
Thank you. But yeah, so these types of episodes really recapture that magic for me in that sense. So
yes.
So overall, Travis, for you, I know your coworker had said that Mind Blowers is preferential to the interdimensional cables. What do you think? How do you feel about the Kramer versus Kramer, since we're talking about court case type of stuff? Interdimensional cables versus Mind Blowers and Rickfending.
I would love to see, fingers crossed, another interdimensional cable one day. How it would happen, if it would happen, if they think that it bumps too much, right? That I don't know. It may never happen. And they do challenge themselves with coming up with new and interesting ways to do an episode in the spirit of a clip show without doing another Morty's Mind Blowers, right? I think the execution of this episode was fantastic. I thought it was great. But I do miss some interdimensional cable. I'm not gonna lie.
And I think we can almost count this definitely as a clip show because they actually showed a clip of a previous episode.
Yeah, which was one of my favorite bits. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. All right. Is anything else you want to talk about else? You have here meta commentary on the show's format, trying to stay fresh.
Well, and me using the word "it bumps," right? That is part of that commentary, right? Where the observers in the courtroom are talking about, if the argument is that Rick and Morty repeat themselves, like, that's not up for discussion, whatever he says. And then they show a series of clips where they're doing the same thing, same sort of thing over and over again, right? That to me is the writers putting their money where their mouth is, or being transparent about the fact that we know that we do things similarly. We know that this is another Morty's Mind Blowers, another interdimensional cable, but it's also something that fans enjoy. It's something they enjoy writing and putting out there, I'm sure. It gives them a lot of creative freedom to do things that to explore ideas that would never make it into a full episode. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's fun. And so I think it's okay to do that meta commentary, to talk about Rick breaks the fourth wall all the time, but the show will also sometimes, tongue in cheek, a line will get out there or something will happen to kind of talk about the development of the show itself, and that the writers hear what fans are saying and acknowledge it.
I got you. What I really want to say is never take these types of episodes for granted.
There you
That's
go.
all. That's all I want to say about that.
Everybody.
Yeah, right. Because when we talked to Ridley a while back, he had mentioned about like talking about sequels, right? That Interdimensional Cable 2, if they felt like they needed to do Interdimensional Cable 2, and he didn't sound very confident about actually everyone loving going back to that concept.
Yeah.
Like trying to write a story about having random clips, and just just doing it again, without being fresh. Story Train, Mind Blowers, Rickfending, new ways of having this come out, right? And I'd be interested to see how if they do it again, fingers crossed they do an episode like this again, how they actually come out and do it.
And so we're going to move on to some of our favorite clips here in a second, but I will say the format of Interdimensional Cable, the format of them sitting on a couch with a hacked cable box, that is not the part that I miss, right? It's the level of improv inside of the clip that I'm yearning for. So whether that's an observer showing an improvised clip, whether that's a mind blower, whatever the next construct, the next format is for that, even allowing like a couple of those in, and maybe that is to his credit, his shameful credit. Justin Roiland came up with some really off-the-wall crazy ideas, oftentimes probably on the fly in the recording booth. So that is definitely something that was part of that early part of the show when he was very involved in the development and writing of the show, and not just the voice acting. So that's.
I do want to mention also there is like the interdimensional video game stuff, like the Street Fighter, like, oh, he's taking a subway.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I mean they honor it almost every season. Like there's something in every season that kind of gets after that idea of a clip show or sort of what'd you say?
The itch. The clip show itch.
But this was great, and to come out of that last episode on Mort Rickon, Rick Prime's dead, Evil Morty's gone. How do you transition, right? You have Rick.
You need something. You need something that's like low calorie. You don't. I'm not lore dumping you, right? Like you just need something to wash it down.
A soft reset. Just like go from Rick passed out on the garage floor to ready to take on adventures anew, in a quick 22-minute montage of clips. So I did like this episode. I thought it was great. Watched it numerous times, and lots and lots of clips in here. I went through the effort of writing them all down, and then you were like, we should not talk about all these. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you. We should not. So we went out and picked some of our favorites. Did you rank order your favorites, or do you just want to go with sort of our top 5 and see where the overlaps are and things like that?
Yeah. I didn't rank them. I picked 5 of them and I went with them. They're in no particular order, because I'm torn between my top 2 really.
Fair enough. One thing before we get into the adventures themselves is the fact that Morty kept his receipts and shows after presenting the adventure cards, that list of adventures, so many of them on there, just really funny. Like to me, it feels very Schraub, right? Like that a lot of these were probably actually things that he wrote down in a writer's room or like on a whiteboard or tossed in a Pop-Tart box. And they're like, yeah, just use them all. Just, what do you got, Schraub? I don't know. Yeah. Dark brunch. Yep. Dark brunch. Write it down. Sure.
Well, talking about Schraub real quick, we're not in the writer's room. We don't know how keyed in Schraub is with everything, right? But we do go back to season 4, season 5, where on the Instagram post that it's the Pop-Tart box of all of Schraub's random ass ideas, right? And so so although there's like Wenwolf was one of those ideas
Yeah.
I recall, right? So although we don't have the vocal ad lib, we do have like that same kind of crazy ideas that off the wall ideas that come out of Schraub's head, comes out of some of those writers' heads. So, uh, as from a writer's perspective, I think we have a Schraub, uh, which
Oh, yeah.
which
Yeah.
but again, where I'm not there, so maybe I don't give him that much credit, and maybe he sucks, and maybe they're like,
Yeah.
he hasn't worked on the show for 4 seasons.
I'm pretty sure he's got credits on like many of the most recent episodes. But
Yeah.
so from
And Creep.
Creepshow. Anyway, from Morty's list of adventures, the regional plumbing convention, the Beanie Baby zombie apocalypse, dark brunch, getting good at yo-yo tricks, Memory Planet, and the memory of Memory Planet. All some of my favorite, easy to miss moments from the early part of the episode.
That's right. That's the actual list that he had there.
Yeah.
We there are some things that the observers said. I think we'll go into that after we get to our top 5 favorite bits. Let's go ahead and get into the favorite bits. I'll start, Travis.
Okay.
I'll start at the bottom. Two of these bits are references to other things. The first of the 2 bits that I really liked was the Western Bacon callback.
Morty, Western bacon, Western bacon, Morty.
You're banned. To be clear, you're banned from that Wendy's or
Carl's Jr.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah. And so that's a callback to all the Carl's Jr. cartoons.
All
Like
the commercials. Yeah, I also just love that they're referencing a specific brand again, which is kind of classic for the show, and that in his drunken stupor, Rick has the same Carl's Jr. order that I have. So I love that as well.
And then the second one of those is, of course, the Space Jam reference.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, they prayed for death.
They begged me. It was a kindness.
It's Space Jam, Rick and Morty.
Yeah, that was pretty great. One of my favorite bits was one that was one of the first ones that the Observer threw to on his own, and that's where we get Boat Morty, where the 2 bullies are picking on Morty, and he turns into a boat due to Rick's implants, and it suddenly turns into this epic and tragic story. R.I.P. Big Doug. Yeah, he's punching himself.
Turn back into a boat, Big Doug. Oh, Big Doug.
And then the little moment right at the end when Rick just portals in, finds Morty, and says, "Come on, Morty, the hamster's turned on me," and like a tiny little hamster jumps out of the portal right before it closes.
Oh, I missed that. I missed that little bit.
It's great. It's great.
Oh, the hamster's gonna kill the other dude. I'm a big fan of Stephen King, as you know, Travis. There's a couple Stephen King references here. The first one I'm gonna go with is the Maximum Overdrive, but with clothes.
Yeah, they can't run you over.
It can't be worse than Cars. At least it's not Cars.
This is worse. This is definitely worse. Yes.
And then ripping that girl's face off, and then the clothes putting it on, wearing it. I love that little bit.
Yeah, little bits.
Back
What was another? Oh, another one that I love. And we saw this clip in the trailer. I think it was part of our speculation spectacular. But this was the Morty bets at the Salty Rick. And I took a moment to pause for anyone that didn't get the time, because we see where Morty sticks his tongue fully up in Ape Borg's nose, and it gets crossed off. But the other ones, one that's already crossed out, Morty marries Mr. Poopy Butthole. And then still to be completed, Morty needs to believe he's a ghost, murder-suicide with the president, common law marry a hippo, chug salad dressing,
Ew.
become Santa Claus, and drink toilet water. So varying degrees of difficulty, but an interesting collection of tasks on the chalkboard of the Salty Ritz.
I mean, chugging salad dressing. You would think that would be the easiest one. Maybe it's like there's a scale. There's a point scale, or maybe they have to go in order, right? Maybe that.
No, because they're not in order. Like yeah, the 8-Borg one's like third down or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Toilet water or salad dressing? Which one are you drinking?
Depends on what kind of salad dressing, I suppose.
Balsamic vinaigrette.
Ooh, no, too much balsamic. I might just go with maybe Italian if I had to pick one.
Okay, good note.
Yeah.
Add that to our Wikipedia pages that I don't think we have.
You didn't answer your own question. Which would you do?
Toilet water every day, all day. That's a little E. coli between friends.
Not a clean toilet, not like a toilet that's never been used. It has to be, don't try to wriggle
like a rest stop toilet.
oh God, yeah, salad dressing.
Salad dressing, yeah. What if it's salad dressing from like a salad bar with no sneeze guard?
It's fine.
Whatever, it's fine.
It's fine as long as it's Italian. All right. Back to the matter at hand. Talked about Maximum Overdrive. Well, let me go ahead and talk about the other Stephen King reference. That's right, Rick and Morty in a Pet Cemetery, spelled Sematary, incorrectly spelled because the kids don't know how to spell cemetery, so they spelled it wrong. They thought it was with an S. Just a little bit of just a little bit of lore there, but yeah, I love that. I love that little bit. We see a zombie hand. We saw that in. We see that. I think we saw that in the trailer. We at least saw it.
It's part of the title sequence this year.
Yeah. So another reference to the title there. The idea of like them being like, you know what, my battery's dead. You can be inquisitive. Why can't I? Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, let's try things out. And then it cutting to a scene of like so many like egg timers and alarm clocks, or them testing out all of this of the capabilities of the pet cemetery.
trying to bury a Volkswagen Beetle. Do you think it'll refill the gas tank? No wrong answers, Morty.
Bury it with the legs down.
Yeah, it's great. And then he's trying to eat that Benjamin Franklin meat. And he's like, "What is this place doing to me?" Yeah. Transitioning to another clip that dealt with, giving life to the non-living. The Churri the Churro, where Morty asks Rick to bring his churro to life, and then they go on all sorts of adventures to the carnival, to Wes Anderson's Grand Royal Hot Tub Emporium, all sorts of fun adventures until he decides he's done hanging out with Churri, and then when they're lowering down to the planet, and they both have those like high eyebrow like grins on their face, like huh?
They're fake smiling.
Yeah.
And poor little Churri. Churri is like right in the middle, and he's so excited.
He's so
like
happy.
bouncing down.
Gonna see my family. Yeah, I'm ecstatic for the payoff that will happen. Hopefully not just in the end tag, but years from now,
Eventually.
when Churri comes back and seeks
new
his
villain.
vengeance. Yeah.
New primary villain is Churri. Some folks in the subreddit during the discussion post were like, why didn't they just make an entire family sentient for Churri? Why did they just give Churri unliving churros?
Yeah. They make mistakes. We know that's the case.
So Churri was my fifth one. So I pass it back to you, Travis, because you cleared me out.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. One of my last favorite bits is a flashback to an actual flashback. It's that giant court flashback I smell. What does he say? Fee fi fo fum. I smell.
The infringement of social liberties or something like that.
Yeah, the infringement of social liberties or something. Yeah. Classic scene. I actually went back and watched that whole clip from Morty's first adventure, which I thought was interesting too. That of all the episodes that they could have sort of flashed back to, Morty's first, pick of adventures, in Me Seeks and Destroy, which, again, I always forget that the Me Seeks episode is also that crazy adventure, like just so much packed into those early episodes when you get an A plot and a B plot at the same time.
Yeah. And Ryan Ridley doing the voice for that.
Of course.
Good, which makes it an official clip show, as we talked about before. Special mentions for leg days, both leg day, and mostly for the observer, who says, "I held on to my tits for nothing."
I also really like Rick's really awful bootleg non-licensed T-shirt. as a meta commentary to all of the merchandise that came out for Pickle Rick.
Rick and Morty show.
Yeah.
The Rick and Morty show.
Yeah. So I think, the observers were an interesting new character entity for this. They had a lot of interesting lines.
Star Trek reference, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a Star Trek watcher, but I think Harmon talks about it on the inside of the episode. Like he talks about Star Trek in there. Some Reddit people had mentioned Star Trek as well. When we're introduced to this thing at the very, very start of the episode, and then it starts just throwing random things out there. Let's see, when he's like, they talk about 9/11, like by your logic, like 9/11 was an adventure. Like, all right, let's watch 9/11.
Let's take a look.
No. Let us tee it up for you. Just some of the observer lines with that stupid voice, that clip show voice were just so
the
great.
Sidewalk is public property, bro, or whatever. Like,
I love that line because, you go to YouTube, people watched all the stuff on YouTube. Like, you don't have to answer this. You can film while you're in the post office. They can't stop you. It's public property. And when I was driving on the road trip with my dad going through the California border, they ask you if you have any fruits or vegetables from outside the state. My dad was like, "Tell them you don't have to answer them." You don't have to.
I'm a citizen, bro. I've got rights.
I got rights. So there is the bit where they're watching they're showing the observers observing each other and them doing stupid stuff. The bootleg movies bit.
Yeah. The fact that they have Batgirl in there, I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah. They had Oppenheimer Requiem, which would be an Oppenheimer sequel. Amsterdam, but the A in dam is the number 4, so Amster D4M. Let's see. The Observer talks about Avatar 3 through 6, and then the one I really like is the Social Network 2 Into the Metaverse, which it's layered. It's a layered joke, and which I appreciate.
Yeah. Layered joke that many people will never catch in the show. So, I gotta love the little details. Yeah, as we see really unsavory observers paying watermelons to fight each other, and sleeping with each other's wives. It's what a treasure Nancy was. That's the only thing we didn't observe.
Yeah, so the Observer said some other funny stuff. There was a lot of other clips that were really good in the show. those were our kind of top 10, top 5, whatever you want to, however you want to quantify them. But if you have a different one that really made you laugh, that made you crack up, or maybe you're so pissed off about it, you just need to vent to somebody, head over to our social media and let us know. Send us an email. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what your top 5 were, and maybe you'll be lucky and we'll read it personally, but then not on the show, because I mean we can't read them all, and you wouldn't.
Everyone.
We do have some swag still from Comic-Con that we got to give away.
Oh yeah, we need to do another. Giveaway.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right, let's talk about best and worst of this episode. What and we talked about the Observer's game show host voice. I'm on the fence here. I don't know if this was like the best thing or the worst thing, because like it was so over the top. At times I was like, oh, like they're really going for it. But as I continued to watch the episode, I don't know, I started to really like it and thought it made me laugh more and more the more that I heard them saying some of that.
That was my brother.
I didn't like his voice either.
the same voice. I like the voices off the bat. Maybe like CompuBot, like Computron, from the heist episode, where it's like just it's a stupid voice, and I'll just lean into enjoying the voice right off the bat. Versus fighting it. But on subsequent viewings, I was even more accepting of them.
Yeah. Much like the voices of Rick and Morty themselves. I don't even like, that's my Rick and Morty now. Like I'm in. I'm fully in. I said we'd talk about the voices at the end of the season, but I just want to talk about like this episode. It keyed it in for me. It locked their voices in for sure for me, because it bridged again like the magic of like an earlier seasons with new content. For some reason, this may have been like the first episode where I didn't think about their voices being different at all. Yeah, I just watched the episode and like, oh yeah, that's right, that's a different voice. And so I want to shout out to them right now. It's like, good job. I'm team Ian and Harry now. Yeah, 100%. I was always. I mean, they don't listen to comments, but maybe they listen to this podcast. If you do, come on anytime. In here it says our clip show fun. I don't know.
Yeah, what I meant by that was just the fact that I love this style of episode. Yeah. And so the fact that this episode exists is the best part for me.
Fair enough. I really like the ending of this episode because of the way that it, and I don't know that whether or not they'll revisit, Rick's existential dread or his struggle with, finding purpose after beating Rick Prime. But for them to start and acknowledge that Rick is checked out on the floor of the garage, and then end with Morty and him jumping into the spaceship. What do you say? Fly through space, come upon something. Maybe I have a moral objection. Stuff gets messy, and you ultimately bail us out. And Rick's in. He's excited. Let's go on an adventure. So, really, really great execution to use this format of an episode to kind of get the ball rolling again and carry us through to the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's right. And after the end of the last episode, we're like, oh, what's gonna happen? Like, oh, how's he gonna deal with life now? And then at the end of this one, it's like, yeah, we're gonna have adventures. Now it's like, okay, let's see, let's not predict anything too quickly about how the writers are going to approach the remainder of what the 70 episodes that they ordered were, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But excited, looking forward to finding more about that next week for the next episode. But before we get there, before we get to next week, before we get to an entirely new episode, we want to say, hey, send us your thoughts about this one. Again, social media, our email. Let us know what you thought.
Yeah, if you're watching online, subscribe so we can hit that milestone.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
leave your favorite clip in the comments. Let us know which one was your favorite.
And that will take us to basically where we talk about you in our section we call Listener Suggestions and Shortouts. That's
It's
right.
Oh, wait, no, we don't do that. We don't.
That's right. You send us stuff, and we talk about it, and then we shower you with praise and adulation. So do you have anything, Travis?
I do have a couple of things. One is a shout out to Something to Fear, who responded to our last episode talking about how their theory that they had replied to us about a few videos ago was almost basically spot on. That, of course, being their predictions about Evil Morty coming back and there being some sort of team up or something going on with Evil Morty and Rick and things like that. Very well done on the prediction. Yeah, that was outstanding.
Yeah. That was email. That was
a YouTube comment.
YouTube. T Bobby Electric also writing some stuff. First of all, asking what in the world is Blue Sky? Well,
nobody knows. I don't know.
Blue Sky is the world's preeminent new social media platform. But they do write that Dan Harmon is a goddamn legend of genius to infinity and beyond. Basically trusting Dan Harmon to move forward for any of the new stuff, right? So anything that happened after Rick Prime, trusting the showrunners to be able to write us an interesting story narrative moving forward. Yeah. And I agree. We haven't been let down yet, except for Sex Dragon.
And we've even learned to accept
we have, haven't
for the most part.
We have,
by and large.
We also have an email, Travis. Do you have that one teed up?
No.
Oh, you don't have the email teed up? Because we got an email.
Mail, tunes, characters. Okay.
Oh, it's embargo for 707. No, that's not it.
Not that email, Brandon. but you should really respond to that email.
Yeah, really should. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. This is from. Nope, not that one. I almost just read the same one that you said.
November 14th from Carrie W. If Rick Prime's home dimension is C-137, then what is Evil Morty's home dimension? I don't think the show has ever established this, since his background has always been nebulous. Do you think the writers will ever give him a number, or is this a detail I've missed? Also, I think that if Rick Prime is the Rickest Rick, then Evil Morty has to be the Mortiest Morty. We've already seen how much Morty C-137 can get done without Rick when he puts his mind to it. If we were smarter, he would basically be Evil Morty. Carrie Webb.
All right, Carrie. Some good thoughts on here. I don't believe they've been specific about Evil Morty's home dimension. The reality is, up until last week, we didn't know anything about Evil Morty's origins prior to the first episode, where we see Evil Morty at the end. What is that? End of... Shoot, that's somewhere in season 2. That's the Council of Ricks type stuff. So yeah, I think it's interesting that they were able to shine a light on the Rick who was working with Evil Morty at the time, and to find out that was Evil Morty's Rick, that he sort of overpowered and made subservient to him. But yeah, in terms of the specifics on a number, I don't know if that's something we'll ever get, or if he's sort of escaped that system because he now lives,
he's off the grid.
He's off the grid. He's outside of that central finite curve.
Hey, he doesn't have a social security number.
he's taking Evil Morty off the grid. That other question about our Rick. Rick Prime is the Rickest Rick. Evil Morty being the Mortiest Morty. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about this. But let's ask this first one with C-137 or our Morty. Basically, he's smarter than we give him credit for. Do you think he would become evil Morty if Rick wasn't around?
Are you ask? Are you? You're
I'm
asking
you. Yeah. What do you think?
if Rick wasn't around? No, if Rick wasn't around, he'd be a normal teenager, doing normal teenager things.
Yeah. Going to math class, trying to
yeah.
date Jessica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at therapy, cowgirl porn or whatever. Yeah.
One of the things I find really interesting, and it's a subtle detail in Mort Rickon, but in that opening montage, after Morty goes up to his room, evil Morty, he's working at his desk, he's doing some soldering or something like that, and he's got some posters on his wall, and they're different posters than what our Morty has in his room. And there's one that's like, I don't know if it's like heavy metal or like a horror movie or something, but it talks about evil and stuff in the poster. And I think that is an intentional, background to show he's got other influences within that dimension that help sort of drive him towards his eventual fate.
Yeah. So our Morty, no, I don't think he would turn out evil. The Mortys need some kind of resentment brewing over years to eventually snap. And everyone has their breaking point. Evil Morty just had his and took it and then became a genius from it, which is how most geniuses end up. They become geniuses because they snap. The whole thing about the Rickest Rick, the Mortiest Morty, those types of things. If we go back to something Rick could. No, it's not something. That's the Ray Bradbury one. If you go back to the introduction of Evil Morty, where they're like, "Oh, the one true Morty," right?
Yeah.
Well, like, it's just Morty's being stupid. Like, there's not really a Rickest anything, right? Honestly, I think our Rick saying that Rick Prime was the Rickest Rick, is almost makes him, to me, the Rickest Rick, or like our Rick, the Rickest Rick, because he's giving that off to somebody else. What we were talking about in the last episode was his feelings, right? Like him having some kind of emotional attachments that something is different about him. One of two, to create portal travel. One of two, to have their wives actually killed. Versus just wiped off from the universe of existence. There's something different about him, and with Rick Prime doesn't have. He's a psychopath, sociopath, whichever was the right one. And our Rick's ability to empathize, I think that's what makes him the Rickest Rick.
I'm with you.
Which is why Evil Morty can never be the Mortiest Morty, because he's a narcissist.
Yeah, I think there will be something true to the duality or the companionship between Rick and Morty. The show being Rick and Morty in the title, right? So I think you have to have both for them to be the Rickest Rick or the Mortiest Morty, right? They rely on each other. So a Rick Prime that goes off on his own, doesn't believe in sidekicks, doesn't believe in those attachments. That can't be the Rickest Rick, really, because he's different. He's weird Rick. And then evil Morty, in the same way, rejects his Rick and wants to completely escape, all Ricks. And so, yeah, I think in the end, Rick, it takes both Ricks and Mortys to be a good late night show on Sunday nights on Adult Swim.
Yeah, I agree. And the last one I'll point out is the toxic episode where the toxicity comes out of them, and they're different people, right? Like they have same their makeup is the same but different. They learn from each other. They've learned from each other for this entire show. And so yeah, like we might take some episodes where it's not focused on them at all, and we're like, I thought the show was called Rick and Morty. Where's Morty?
Yeah.
In the end, it's a story about them growing together.
There you go.
As brothers, and not as grandfather and grandson.
And with that, that will end this episode. Thanks so much to everybody for listening, for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing this podcast with people. If you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. May your turkeys be pardoned. May your presidents not try to turn into turkeys. And
Gobble.
And we will be back next week with another episode. Until then, I'm Travis.
And I'm Brandon. And happy everything. Happy every day.
Happy every day.
Who needs one day to be thankful? I'm thankful for you every day.
Gratitude and choice.
Shout out to Zatchmo over in Discord.